Hello all, welcome. A new day and a new question. So today we'll be talking about uh, around how you download symbols in Business Central 14 if you're working on that CAL or AL hybrid model in Business Central 14. Now multiple questions posted about it, and I never thought about it that there are still people who are using Business Central 14. But let's start talking about it and let's understand what you need to do similar kind of steps in Business Central 14. Because it's a hybrid environment, the steps are a little bit different. So if you are on Business Central 14 and you are working on a hybrid model, let's understand how you can how following these steps will be easier to do development in Business Central 14 AL. Before we get ahead into the video, a simple humble request again. We see that there are very few people who have subscribed to the channel who are watching the videos. It's a very simple thing for you to subscribe to the channel if you like the content. It helps us to understand how many people are liking the content and what kind of content we should be building. So a humble request to please subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and let's get back to business. So what happens in Business N 14? So for the demo, I have this demo database for Business N 14 North America localization, where I have one table in CAL. At the same time, if I'm not wrong, and let me try running my customer list. I should also have an extension deployed on Business Central 40. Now that's a hybrid model where there are some customizations in CEL and then there are some customization as an AL extension package. Now to understand what goes in there, let me open the client first and show you what I'm saying. So on my customer card, the customer list, there's this field called demo field, which is not part of CAL customization. If you look at it, table 18 is as a standard as it should be, and but the field is available based on the extension that I have built in AL. So if you go into extension management, other than some Microsoft extension that are already there, you'll see also an extension installed called demo extension. So now let's understand the nuances of downloading symbol and first see, do we even have errors while trying to download the symbols. So we're pointing to a service called BC140. So let's start our Visual Studio Code and we'll create a new project using ALGO. We'll call it BC14 demo. And the runtime, as we discussed in the last video, is very important because it sets some properties in your app.json. For Business Central 14, the runtime is 3.0. We'll choose 3.0. We'll set up the app.json and also the launch.json, and we'll select own server, which is my local environment in this case. It'll give me the launch.json here and the app.json here, where you'll be able to see on app.json the setting for application is set to 14.0, and instead of the new resource exposure policy, it's still pointing to show my code, which is a valid property in Business Central 14 extensions. Now let's try to connect it to our local server, which is my local host, and then my service. And because I'm using a custom port, I'll have to define this, and I'm using the port 1049. How I know this? You need to go to your service here, collapse all these tabs, and you'll see on the development there's a port that I've specified as 1049. So if I try to download symbol, I should download two symbols against it. So let's try to do that. Oh, and I forgot to change my authentication as Windows. So now let's try to download the symbols. Let's try to scan, go to the service tier, validating that there are symbols or not, and it ended up with some error messages. Let's try reading them. And let me zoom this in so that you all can see it. So the first error message that we see is server is started. Yes, it is. The development endpoint is enabled. Is the developer service enabled on the server setting? So let's go ahead and check. Let's edit this. The development service endpoint is disabled. So let's enable it. Set it. Anytime we change the setting, we'll have to restart the service. Let's restart it. Let's keep reading it. The service name matches in the URL. Yes, we have BC140 set here, which is the service pointing to the database. The port number matches to specified in the URL, which we have done. The port number is 1049, and that's what we have set up here. The protocol matches to URL and the trusted certificate in the SSL connection, which we are not using, and then the error is occurred. Okay, so service is restarted. Let's try to download the symbol now. Okay, it's going back, trying to download two packages. One is called Microsoft Application and one is called Microsoft System. It's right now going to service, seeing are there any symbols or not, and it did something. So let's see here. It did download the Microsoft application, which it was trying here, but it did not download the system application. What does the application package contain? It contains all your objects other than the system objects. So for some reason, the system application is not downloaded. Now that can be other situation where your system application is downloaded but your application is not downloaded, and that works. And let's also scan, do we see that table in here or not? Let's search it here. Oh, that table is also not present. So it's not all the tables, it's some partial application object set that came out. So we'll have to do something to make sure it happens. Now I'll refer you to this article from Microsoft called Running Seaside and AL side by side. And don't worry about it. I'll put the link in the description or as the first comment to this video. But it says that the AL language works based on symbol references to the symbols of the object. And because it's a hybrid environment, you may change objects in the CAL world. And if that happens, you need to make sure that the symbols are up to date so that they can be accessed from your Visual Studio Code. Reflected and this, and then called generate symbol references, generate symbol and compile all objects. You either compile all objects, you should compile all the objects, but at the same time you need to open the command prompt as run as administrator. So I'll just open my command prompt, run it as administrator, and once it is running as administrator, I'll have to follow one simple command. What is that? Which updates the object metadata with the symbols. This is a command. FinSQL this and this and this, which is FinSQL command generate references. What is the database name and where the database is hosted. Now before we do that, we need to reach to the path where the FinSQL is placed, which is on our wholesaler client folder. So let's copy this path and let's do a command prompt. Change directory to this path. Now you see the prompt here. You'll be able to see the FinSQL here. So let's try writing that command, which is, or do we need to write it? I don't think so. Let's copy that in, paste it in here. My database name is Java database PC40. Okay. And the next parameter is server name. See, I'm bad with that. And my server name luckily is localhost. If you are using an instance, and we'll come to it in a while. So once you have done this, hit enter. It'll show you that it's completed, but it is not. What you have to do is you have to open your task manager. Once you open your task manager, In the users, you will see that there are certain executables are running, and you will see that there are two Microsoft Dynamics Nav R services are running. So we'll wait for this to end. While this is happening, let's go back to the article and let's keep reading it while we are here. So if you have an instance on your SQL server where your database is hosted, the command slightly changes where you have to specify the server name and then the instance name. In my case, there were no instances, or it was a default instance. In that case, I don't have to specify it. The Win SQL includes several parameters that you can set to suit your environment. We'll come to it in a while. This is a lengthy operation, the operation that we are running. When the run is completed, the console will run an empty command prompt, as we saw in our command prompt. However, the Fin SQL is still running in the background. It can take several minutes to run the complete steps. And at the end, once it is completed, you should see a file here of type text, which is not yet generated. So just keep eye, there's no text file yet. You will see the FinSQL is still running on the task manager as we are looking at it here on the details tab for FinSQL.exe. When the process ends, either a file name called nav command results.txt will be created on the installation folder. If the command succeeds, the file will contain a text. The command completed successfully in X and Y minutes or seconds. If the command fails, the another file name called naverrorlog.txt will be generated, and it will contain the details of error that you need to fix for generating symbol classes. The symbol reference are installed in a column in object metadata table, so that table gets updated. For on-prem installation, which it is, if you experience problem, then use this file to understand what you are doing wrong and correct that. Now this is one time while we are running this. For the first time you'll have to run this. But is there a way to kind of continuously make sure that the symbols are generated as you're working on the hybrid mode? And that's what the second section of this article talks about. That how you can continuously keep generating symbol each time you compile objects in your C side. So anytime you do a change in C side and try to save that change, it will always ask you for, we want to compile it like this, compile. So anytime you compile an object, the system should automatically update the symbol references. And how you do that? For that, you need to make sure that you set this flag whenever the object is, whenever the client is running. So how you do that? You create a new shortcut for your SQL exe and add a parameter of generate symbol references and set it to yes, which is finsql.exe and generate symbol reference yes. So let's do this while we are watching it. So let's go back to our folder, look for finsql here, and let's copy the path, copy as path. Let's on my desktop, let me create a shortcut for us, new shortcut, and I'll point it to this path, which is finsql.exe, and then at the end of it I'll also add this syntax, and then I'll do a next, and I'll say finsql ec14 dev with symbol generation, finish, and it is here. So now whenever I'm doing development, and if I run my business and the client using this shortcut, I'll always try to make sure that the symbols are generated. But let's look at it, what happened. So if you notice, one of the FinSQL is closed. So let's go back into our folder and let's look for a text file. And if you look at it now, there's a text document, and the text document is called nav command result, which means that the operation completed successfully in 2 to 8 seconds. Okay. So the symbols are generated, it seems. Let's go back to our VS Code and let's try to download symbols. This time, it downloaded both the symbols, application and system. When you scan system, you see all system objects. When you click on application and you search for your custom table, and I'm doing it wrong somehow, maybe let me delete this because it didn't refresh. And let me try to download again. Again downloaded. Okay. I still don't see it. My table in NAV, which is at number 50,000, is not visible in AL. And I'm missing something on my articles. Let's have a look. Let's go back to article. It says the flag is also part of compile nav application PowerShell command, which I'm pretty sure you are not using if you're on C yet, but you should be using that there if needed. But then there is one more setting on the service tier. In addition to symbol generation setting you have to choose above, you must enable loading of symbol at server startup. This setting must be enabled to allow symbol generation. If this setting is not enabled, does not have any effect. So even if you have created this shortcut but you did not update your service tier, you'll not keep on getting symbols generated every time. So how we set that? Let's get back into our service, go to our development tab, and then there's this boolean called enable loading application symbol references at server startup. Enable this, save this, restart the service, and now you are set. Anytime you do a modification, it will understand that whenever you are compiling object, it should generate the symbols. So what I'll do is I'll close this client and use our new client so that my symbol generation happens every time when I do a compile object. And we'll try that in a while once the service restarts. Because I'm trying to compile a table which will require a service to be started to sync those changes back. So what you learn? That there are not many but 3 steps to kind of make sure that you don't end up with running into problems, and anytime you run that out you can always generate the symbols again. So let's compile this. Done. I'm using the new exe. I have the symbol generation here. Let's delete it and let's try to download the symbols again. Now it's going back to the result body and seeing is there symbols available, the latest copies, and if it finds it, it'll download it. If it doesn't, we know the way which is generating the symbol, which it did not. Okay, there's some AL issues it seems, not a problem. Let's reload the environment and let's try one more time before we get into symbol generation. Okay. Okay, that should be running. Okay, it's going in there, trying to find for the system version which is already there, but it's also trying to find the application version. Okay, now let's have a look. And now we see our employee bank account table, which is not available, but that's okay because it's the older version. You might not see it in the future versions. You'll see it. Now let's come back to doing some changes and see if the symbols are syncing or not. So let's create a new table and let's create a field into it. For some reason I can't zoom the screen, but I'm creating a field called code after code of line 10 and then description after text of length 50. Let's save it and we call it 50,001 demo table, and I'll do it now with validation. As soon as I do this, I have it compiled. If I delete the symbol, or if I refresh the symbol by using the download symbol, I should be seeing that new table that I just created, because I'm using all the sync steps so that my symbols are up to date. And that's it. So now you see that the table is here as I made the changes in CL. One last thing before we end this video. While you're working on this hybrid model, remember two things. For the demo purposes, as I said, I already have an extension on this environment, which is here, where I forgot to download symbol. Let me do that. But if you see that I already have a table extension on the customer table, where it is creating a demo field, which we saw in the beginning of the video. Now in your code, if in CAL code, if you try to refer this field, you'll never be able to find this. So how that looks like, let me explain what I'm trying to say. If I create a new code unit, and if I have a variable for customer, and if I try to do customer dot, I'll never see SDH demo, because your CAL is not able to understand what's written in AL. As in, there are ways, hops and tricks to do it, but I would not even suggest that you ever do that. But in AL, if I have a field here in CAL, and let's try to create that. I create a field at 60,000. CAL demo field, and I'll call it code 10. Let's save it. It got saved, I'm hoping. Okay, it's saying done. And I come back here and now download the symbol. And as the symbol is getting downloaded, the system will understand that field in that table. Now in this, if I create a variable for my customer table, I can see that I can do a customer.cal demo field. And also I can see customer dot SDH demo, and I can't see it because this extension is supposed to be dependent on the other extension to find that. But the point is that your AL can understand the fields that are defined in CAL. The AL can understand the methods that are written in CAL or procedures, but not vice versa. You can't go back to CAL and refer to a field which was created using AL extension. So while working on the hybrid model, remember this, that anytime you're working on a hybrid environment, you should not, as in there are ways to do it, as in you can do it with regref and field refs, all that is possible. But remember not to try to do that, because that will end up causing problems in your future updates, because you are trying to solve a problem which will never exist in the future world. So if you are trying to build something as an AL extension in Business 14, then do completely into AL. Don't have dependencies on some of the code in AL, CAL, if possible, and same vice versa. If there's a certain set of functionality that need to reside in CAL, then keep it in CAL. Move that to AL with your next upgrade, which should be as soon as possible you can do. So before we wrap this up, remember what we learned. Make sure that the symbols are generated in your service tier in Business 14, you need to make sure that your three settings are set. One is enable developer service endpoint enable loading symbol at server description startup, two settings on the service tier. And then if you have a custom port while you are trying to connect to your database using Visual Studio Code, you should also have to define that in your launch.json as a separate property. The default value of this property when not specified is 7049, which is the default. The last but not least, that when if you're working on a hybrid mode, make sure to create a shortcut of your business 14 finsql.exe with the parameter generate symbol references as yes. If you have these three settings on, the shortcut with the generate symbol references, the developer endpoint enable, and enables symbol at what was that setting? I forget about that. Enable loading application symbol references at startup. You are good there. If you are doing it for the first time, make sure to go to your command prompt as administrator, change it directly to the rotator client, run the command to generate symbol references with the database name and server name, and monitor it, the progress of it from the task manager. Once the process ends, you'll always be able to see a text file. If there are issues, you'll be able to see the errors in that. And do refer to this article, which I'll add into the comments to this video. So hopefully who had this question understands all the nuances of how to do it, and it solves the problem that you are facing. If you do like the video, then share it with your colleagues. Share it in the community to spread the knowledge. If you like the content, please subscribe to the channel and let me know your views as comment to this video. See you next day with the next question that we will get in our community. Thank you.